Thank you for tuning in for this session of the Women Thrive Summit. And this session is about breaking the cycle of abuse hiding in plain sight. And my guest expert today is Tracy May, who is a love and relationship coach, empowering women to break free from toxic love patterns, narcissistic abuse, and trauma to finally get the love they deserve and have the life full of joy, fun, connection, true intimacy, and success. And I personally believe that every woman deserves freedom, happiness, and to feel safe, whether at home or any other environment that we're in. Because I think when we women are empowered and have that freedom, we can show up in so many more powerful ways, and we truly can claim our power that we deserve to have. I'm personally really, really passionate about this topic, Tracy, and I'm cheering you all the way on to support you in sharing your message with the world, and in hopes that this was going to inspire and change somebody's life. And this, if this session is not necessarily something you're going through or connecting through right now, don't worry, just be here to support Tracy. And who knows, this knowledge may just equip you for the next stage of your life, or to help your friend, to help a loved one, to help your sister, to help your mom. We could never have more information or around this topic, more information and awareness. So Tracy, thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. And it's an honor and a privilege to be here. And so I put some links in, and I don't know you guys are going to put some more links in. So feel free just to check things out. But I want to thank you so much for being here with me in this beautiful space. I honor each one of you for taking the time to be here and investing in yourself and your business. And like Ramonda said, I am a love and relationship coach, and I specialize in toxic relationships, narcissistic abuse, and trauma recovery. And I am so excited to share about my topic, breaking the cycle of abuse hiding in plain sight, and to just share a little bit about my journey and how I help women business owners with my one-on-one and group coaching to have the relationship they want, that they dream of, and the business success that they desire. We can have it all if we heal our wounds from our childhood. Today, I am sharing how overt and covert abuse negatively impacts you and your business. We're going to identify toxic love patterns that may be hiding in plain sight in your relationship and bleeding over to your business. Because what happens to us on a personal level in our relationships affects all areas of our life, including our business. And that's why this is such an important topic. We're going to talk about creating boundaries that will help you break the toxic love patterns that are undermining your relationship and business. We're going to talk about how to reclaim your power and sanity and rebuild your courage so you can make powerful decisions, because we can't make powerful decisions when we don't feel empowered. And we're going to go over how to nurture ourselves from the inside out so we can show up powerfully and confidently in our business. So I am very passionate about helping women stop suffering in abusive relationships and to feel sane again. My passion comes from being a survivor of domestic violence in my childhood and overcoming abusive relationships to now live completely free of abuse. My mission is to eradicate abuse in relationships, one woman at a time, in my Rise and Thrive programs. And I'm wondering how many of you haven't had the best of luck at love or know someone who hasn't. If you could maybe put a yes in the chat, that would be great. And I have not had the best of luck at love. In fact, I've been in 3 abusive relationships with narcissists, and one lasted almost 25 years, and he spent over $250,000 on strippers and prostitutes, and I didn't know it. I know, crazy. Yeah, type crazy in the chat if you have had a crazy relationship or had something crazy happen to you. Yeah, exactly. A lot of us have. But before all that happened, as a little girl, all I wanted was to be loved and cared about by my parents. And I'm sure you all felt the same way. When we're little, we just want love and connection. But I didn't get the love I needed. My dad abandoned me when I was 3. My mom was a functioning alcoholic, drunk basically 24/7, and she was in and out of rehab my entire childhood. My stepfather was a raging, abusive alcoholic, and I watched him and heard him walk up behind my 8-year-old brother when I was like 10 and tell him, "I am going to kill you in your sleep." I told my mom and she didn't believe me. And so I didn't feel loved and I didn't feel safe. And I was always waiting for something bad to happen. And I felt a lot of shame and I didn't want anyone to know what my home life was like. And I never felt like I fit in. So when I went out into the world looking for love and connection that I didn't get as a child, I fell in love and I was pregnant at 17, married at 18, divorced at 23 with a 4-year-old and an infant. I'm sorry, I'll probably have some emotional moments saying all of this. I didn't realize that relationship was abusive at the time because I thought we fought a lot because we were young. And then a few years later, I met someone who became my fiance. And he beat me because I left the butter dish out on the counter instead of putting it in the refrigerator. And he beat me for other crazy things. And I believe that crap was my fault because I actually did leave the butter dish on the counter. And that's how abuse, hiding in plain sight, works, right? They convince you you're the problem because I made a mistake. I left the butter dish out, so that means I'm supposed to get beat. Well, I believed all the beatings were my fault for a long time until I was finally able to extricate myself from that relationship. And after 10 years of therapy, I thought I was healthy, ready to have a healthy relationship. I met my second husband, and our relationship started out amazing, just like all my other amazing relationships that didn't work out. I felt loved, accepted, heard, seen, understood, everything that I was missing my whole life at that point. We had a lot in common. We traveled. He sent me flowers, gifts. We enjoyed each other. He was my soulmate, the one I'd waited for. We built a home together. We got married. We had kids from separate, different marriages. And we started a business, became very successful. We golfed together, took piano lessons together, planned weddings. We had a normal life. But as the years went on, I started to notice he was angry about really silly things. Like I wanted to go to bed after him because I wanted to read a book, or I wanted to move a plant in the landscaping, right? These aren't things you usually get angry with someone about. And so I would find myself just questioning what's going on, but I didn't really think a lot about it. And then I started to notice that he got angry more often. And then a few years later, it seemed like he was angry at me all the time, criticizing me, belittling me, blaming me for things, accusing me of things, raging for hours on end. And if I would try to explain, defend, justify, or trying to get him to understand that what he was upset about was, not really something to be upset about, he would twist whatever I said around to make me wrong. And then he would use things from the past just to bring up to say I did these terrible things. They were never terrible things. I was never cheating, drinking, doing drugs. I was never doing anything detrimental to our relationship, but that's how he experienced it. So how many of you have experienced starting out loving and then it slowly changed to anger? I'm just curious if you could put something in the chat. Yeah. Yes, thank you for sharing. I appreciate that. And we had great times too, in between the angry times. And I would see slivers of the man I fell in love with. And so that kept me staying in the relationship because I remembered the amazing person I met in the beginning of our relationship, and I wanted that person back. And I couldn't figure out how to get him back, but I just kept holding on, right? We keep staying in these relationships for so long. And as a smart, intelligent, capable woman and a successful entrepreneur of several businesses, none of this made sense to me. I thought I should be able to figure this out. And so I felt very confused. And I would think, what happened to the man I loved? Where did he go? I couldn't find him. So after years of searching for answers with therapy, books, programs, audios, events, couples therapy, everything you can think of, trying to fix myself because I thought I was the problem all this time. I twisted myself into a pretzel trying to please him, trying to be perfect. Nothing ever stopped his anger. He always found something to be angry at me about. And he would be angry at me because I exercised too much. I went to lunch with a grown daughter. I went horseback riding with my granddaughter. I was on my phone texting a client. Like, it could be any number of things. He would just always be yelling at me. And I found myself walking on eggshells, trying to keep the peace, dealing with what felt like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, because he would flip on a dime out of nowhere and we'd be having a normal conversation. So it wouldn't make sense to me. Like, why is this person acting so crazy, right? But I loved him and I wanted to make this marriage work. I felt like I was on an emotional roller coaster from day to day, never knowing which version of him that was going to show up. I constantly felt like I was crazy and I was focused on him and his moods. Like, my life became just looking or paying attention to his moods. So I knew how to keep myself safe, right? Because when you're dealing with someone that's narcissistic, yeah, you're really just trying to be safe every day. But everyone in our life thought he was the greatest guy. And he was the greatest guy to everyone else. So I wonder if you've ever felt like that. Crazy, broken, lonely, isolated, and not able to get back to the you once were. If you could put something in the chats, that would be helpful. Yes, Natalie, thank you. Yes, we were too. We were really perfect couple on paper. From the outside looking in, our life looked amazing, right? We had a beautiful home, cars, a business, everything. It was amazing. But inside of our home, I was never safe. And so after 18 years of being together, I was having suicidal ideations and I felt depressed and beaten down. I wanted to end our relationship, but I couldn't do it because I was too scared. And so I was desperate to find a solution to save my marriage. So I thought, and I know this sounds crazy, but I thought if I would move out, we could work things out because he'd stop being angry and we could discuss things. And so it was kind of at this point where I was at rock bottom. I didn't know what to do to save my marriage. And for me, being in my third long-term relationship and my second marriage meant failure. If I failed at it, that meant there was something wrong with me. And so I was just fighting really hard to hold on to this relationship, even though I knew I wasn't feeling good, even though I knew it felt impossible to fix. But yet I never give up, right? Entrepreneurs never give up. That's my personality. I never give up. And so I just had to keep trying and keep trying and keep trying. And so I remember I was in this apartment and we were having this conversation and he was angrier than ever, like just screaming crazy stuff. And I remember hanging that phone up and going, oh my God, like I felt like I had literally hit a wall, like it wasn't anything he did or said. It was more like, fuck, sorry for the word, but it's like, I cannot take one more effing crazy conversation with this man. I cannot take one more verbal lashing and feeling like I've been beat over the head with a baseball bat. I cannot take one more 2-hour raging session. And it was just like, I am so tired of this. I have to find a solution. That's what I thought. I didn't think I need to get out. I thought I need to fix it. So then a few days later, I was going to my therapist who I'd been going to for like 25 years. And she never helped me figure out what was going on, but she did help me deal with the trauma from day to day. And most therapists don't, because they don't know how to deal with narcissists and they don't really know how to deal with abusive relationships. And so you really need to get someone to help you and support you from someone who has been through these experiences, because they're so bizarre. It's hard to explain to anyone that hasn't actually been through it. So anyway, she had mentioned inner child healing to me numerous times. And I thought, well, maybe that will help. And so I signed up for this 5-day intensive. And I went to it, hopeful I could save my marriage. And what I realized was I was part of the cycle because I was staying and putting up with the abuse. Now, keep in mind, you're never responsible for someone who abuses you. The abuse is always their fault. They choose to do it. You don't make it happen on any way, shape, or form. But we are part of the cycle because we're staying and we're allowing it on a subconscious level. We're not deciding, oh, I'm going to stay in an abusive relationship, but we're just really trying to save the relationship by staying. That's what we think. We think that's what's going to solve it, but it really isn't. And so when I learned this, I thought, well, this doesn't make sense to me because I was trying to save my marriage. How do I save my marriage if I don't stay and work it out? And so I got some really tough love during those sessions, which I needed, thankfully. But what I hadn't learned from any of my prior searching, right, because I've searched everything, was that I was conditioned to put up with abuse in my childhood, as many of you were, and as my clients are. And I'm wondering if some of the people here have realized that they have been conditioned. Yes, so 70 to 80% of us grow up in dysfunctional homes. Yes, thank you for all your comments, you guys. I'm gonna go back and read all of them. I'm glad that you guys can relate to this. So 70 to 80% of us grow up in dysfunctional homes, and we learn from 0 to 6 how to have relationships and how to show up in a relationship. And that is the time when we develop our subconscious beliefs, our programming, our patterns, and our conditioning. And that creates our comfort zone for how to have relationships and how to live life. And our subconscious runs 95% of our life. So anything we absorb from 0 to 6, good or bad, is now running our life without us knowing it. Because we can think something up in our head, but our subconscious is making all of our decisions. And so in these dysfunctional homes, when our parents just, they're hurt too, right? They're wounded. They don't have the ability to give us the love that we want because they never got the love they wanted from their parents, and they're hurting. You know, for me, my parents were addicts and it was a very lonely place to live, but we develop painful feelings of helplessness, heartbreak, loneliness, and grief over not being able to connect with our parents. Like, that's painful because we want love and connection, and we need that to survive. And so in order to survive, we create these coping mechanisms. And some of them are coping mechanisms and beliefs, right? We have this belief, I'm not lovable. That is our greatest fear. When we get deep down into underneath all the stuff that's going on, we're terrified that we're not lovable. And our second greatest fear is that we're not good enough. And then we have other fears like we're not worthy, we don't matter, we don't deserve things, etc. There's like a lot of those. But we use those beliefs to survive the trauma of our childhood because that gives us control. If there's something wrong with us, then that means we can fix it, right? If we think that there's something wrong with our parents, like we wouldn't be able to survive through any of the life through that. It's very, very complicated. But anyways, sorry, I got off on a different tangent. And so we go out and we are trying to get the love and acceptance from our partners that we never got from our parents. And there is so much more to the subconscious role. And I go deeper into this topic in my coaching program, and I would love to be able to share it with you guys. So how did I overcome being in 3 abusive relationships with narcissists? I had to learn to give myself the love my parents didn't. I had to learn how to love myself instead of giving my power away, which is what we're doing when we're staying and letting someone abuse us, when we're trying to fix the relationship. Because in our mind, we're trying to fix the relationship. We don't see that we're part of the problem, and we're not part of the abusive problem, but we're part of our problem for staying. And so I had to heal the trauma from my childhood, which I know a lot of people have talked about so far, and replace those beliefs that we have going on to be what I wanted, so that I could be empowered, so that I could have the life that I wanted, instead of having the life that I was given without choice. And so one of the things I had to do was learn how to set boundaries, because I didn't know how to set boundaries. My mom and my stepdad violated my boundaries all the time, and it wasn't safe to have boundaries. Did you know that boundaries are an act of love? I sure didn't. Have any of you? Could you comment? Yeah, it's true. Boundaries are an act of love. Yeah, most of us don't realize that. I didn't. I thought boundaries were telling people how they had to treat you. And when they didn't treat you the way you wanted, you just kept telling them again and again and again. But that never works, does it? That never works. Boundaries teach us how we want to be treated, and we teach other people how to treat us. And so when we put up with abuse subconsciously, they learn they can continue to treat us abusively. If it doesn't feel safe to have boundaries, that's a sign that this isn't a healthy relationship. And a lot of my clients struggle with that. And boundaries can be very scary to set with people you love, because I could set boundaries all day long with everyone that I didn't love, but trying to set boundaries with people I loved and that I wanted to love me was very difficult, and I was not good at it. And if I started when I thought about setting boundaries with my husband, my second husband, I was afraid he would get angry, stop loving me, leave me, or abandon me. And so then it's like, well, why do I want to set boundaries? I don't want that to happen. How many of you feel or have felt like that? Yeah, for sure. And then when I started thinking about setting boundaries when he was angry, yelling at me, that felt even scarier. And the thought of walking away while he's yelling at me was like super scary, because I was afraid he'd get even more angry and he might follow me, and my physical safety might be at risk. And that happened with, one or more of my ex relationships. So it's important to realize that boundaries are our responsibility to keep, not the other person. A healthy person will generally respect your boundaries, and an unhealthy person won't respect your boundaries. And so it's really important for us to know our own boundaries. And if someone's violating them, we stay away from that person. We don't try to get that person to respect our boundaries, because they're not going to. And the reason they're not going to is because we can be in one of two intentions at any time. We can be in the intention, and we can be in an open intention or a closed intention. So an open intention is when we are loving, learning, curious about the other person. Closed intention is when we're in control, protect, and avoid mode. And so a healthy relationship is two people who are generally in, almost always, 90 or 95% of the time, they are in an open intention. And so when you have a problem, you're curious to talk to each other. You're curious about how the other person's feeling. You're wanting to learn what's going on for the other person that made them upset, so that you can get, you're coming to it with a loving approach. A closed intention is control, protect, and avoid. And so if you're with someone who's abusive, they're going to be in a control, protect, avoid, or a closed intention almost all the time. And when we're with someone who's abusive, we will almost always be in a closed intention, because we're trying to protect and avoid ourselves and control the situation. We're trying to avoid our feelings. And so it's really important to notice, what is the intention that I'm in, and what is the intention that the other person is in, because we can only have healthy relationships when we are both in an intention to be open. And I hope that makes sense to a lot of you. It was really hard for me to really understand that too. So all of this was a lot of learning over a lot of years. But I'm grateful that I've learned it, and that I get to share all of this with you. So if someone stops loving you because you set boundaries, they didn't love you. They loved treating you bad. So you can reclaim your power and your sanity when you set and implement boundaries at your home. You reclaim boundaries at your business, because what we're generally doing at home, we're allowing at our business. And so I'd love for you just to think about what are some boundaries you'd like to set and who you would like to set them with. And I encourage you to do that today after the summit. Thank you. Yes, I'm glad you're resonating, because I feel like this stuff is so important. And so one of the other things I had to learn to do was how to nurture myself from the inside out. Give an example of good boundaries. Well, if someone's yelling at you, then you can say, I can see you're not open to talking about this right now. I'll check back with you in about a half hour. Let's see if we're able to talk about it then. So, and noticing, when do we want to say, like noticing if we're saying yes when we want to say no, or no when we want to say yes. Like really getting to a place where we're honest with what we want. What's the boundaries that we want? I want to be around someone who treats me well. I want to be around someone that's motivated. I want to be around someone who's empowering. I want to be around someone who I can trust. So those are boundaries. They're values and they translate over to boundaries. And so we need to pick people based on those boundaries of the kind of people we want. But the most important thing is noticing when we're letting someone treat us bad in order to stay in some type of relationship with them, whether it's our parents, our spouse, our boyfriend, kids, adult kids, siblings, all of that. So I hope that clears that up, and I can talk about that a little bit later. But anyways, back to nurturing myself. I had to learn how to focus on me, because when you're in a toxic relationship, you're focused on the other person, right? You're focused on fixing them, keeping the peace, trying to stay safe. And that's not easy when you're stuck in those patterns of survival. And so kind of the way one of my coaches told me was stay in your lane, stop focusing on them, get in your lane, look at you, notice how you're feeling. I had to change my self-talk, and that was very negative. I had to listen to my feelings, especially when I felt scared, alone, helpless, heartbreak, and grief, so that I could take care of my own feelings instead of trying to get someone else to take care of my feelings. And so we can start nurturing ourselves on the inside out by journaling, meditating, affirmations, doing gratitudes, mirror work, celebrating your small wins, and walking, exercising, listening to music, riding bikes, ice cream, movies, being with friends, like whatever fills you up. That's how we nurture ourselves instead of going and trying to keep everyone else happy. And I do have a guide. It's called 15 Ways to Go from Barely Surviving to Thriving. And it's all about nurturing yourself. And you can grab it from the resources tab on my website. And I have another one on there that would be good for the person that asked about examples of boundaries. There's a guide that's, oh gosh, I forget the name of it, but it's like 7 ways to deal with your angry husband. And so it's some ways to set boundaries when they're angry. And so most importantly is to take time to yourself, to be with just yourself, to love just you intrinsically instead of for your productivity and for your achievements, right? Because as women entrepreneurs, we are very focused on being productive and getting things done. And sometimes we forget to take care of us. And so when we can be resourceful and confident and bold, when we feel nurtured from the inside out, that makes us better in our business, right? Because all of this is about showing up for ourselves in a powerful way, because we haven't been. Like our business might be successful, but it's not as successful as it could be because we're not showing up. And so breaking the silence of abuse hiding in plain sight is all about coming back to you as the resource for you, instead of trying to get someone else to love us. Now, we all want to be loved and accepted, but when it's unhealthy, when we're putting up with bad behavior, that means that we're not taking care of ourselves. I hope that makes sense. So in an abusive relationship, you are not abused in the beginning because you wouldn't stay. You're not usually abused 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's intermittent and unpredictable, and that's what makes you feel crazy, especially when it's the covert abuse. Physical abuse, we can see, we can put our fingers on, but covert abuse, like the undermining, the gaslighting, the crazy conversations, the blaming, the bullying, all the crazy stuff that goes on, we don't see that. And so that's what makes us feel crazy. And abusers groom and condition you to accept more and more abuse over time without you realizing it. And an abusive relationship is much like the ups and downs of a roller coaster and the twists and turns. You experience severe highs and lows. The lows are highs and lows. Yeah, sorry. You have idealization, where they make you feel really great. It's like love bombing, affection, praise, gifts, connection, vacations. He's your soulmate. The low is when they're devaluing you through the abusive ways that they belittle you and make you feel bad about yourself. And then sometimes you have discard. I never really had that because I guess people I was with were getting what they needed. And so I was always the one that needed to end the relationship. But sometimes the abuser will end the relationship. Sometimes they do it just to get you back in. But anyways, so when we're experiencing these highs and lows of a relationship, when we're in the high, think oxytocin, dopamine, and serotonin, feel good chemicals, right? And then all of a sudden we have that low and the chemicals go away. And then we have the high, we want the chemicals back. And so an abusive relationship is addictive. It's called toxic love addiction. We have a peptide addiction, peptide cells inside of us that are addicted to these highs and lows, to those chemicals that are making us feel good and the chemicals that aren't there that make us feel bad. And so a toxic love addiction is just as hard to break as any other addiction. There have been many people who have said healing from a cocaine addiction or heroin addiction is not as difficult as healing from a toxic love addiction. That's how addictive it is. It is just eats at our soul and just really tears us apart. And so I'm just wondering, like, have you ever heard someone say when a woman's like, you know, oh my gosh, I can't do this anymore. I'm getting out of this relationship. And then she goes back seven, you know, like the average is 7 times. A woman in an abusive relationship will go back an average of 7 times. And so when that happens, I've heard people say, well, it must not be that bad. She stays. And I've even thought, oh, it's really not that bad. He's not hitting me. Like, you know, I should be able to figure this out. The reason why we stay is toxic love addiction. And you will go through withdrawals when you go no contact with this person because you are addicted to the highs and the lows. That's why you need someone to help you with those little steps. And so as I set boundaries and stepped out of the cycle with my second husband, he got more and more angry. And I thought that was weird because I'm like, I thought things were supposed to get better if I set boundaries. But at first they didn't, because he got more angry because he no longer had control of me, because that's one of the things an abuser wants, is to control and manipulate you to do exactly what they want and take their pain so you don't have to feel, so they don't have to feel it. And I would take 1 step forward and 2 steps back when I got triggered. And then I'd take 1 step forward and go 2 steps back. And so it's like failing 7 times, but getting up that 8th time, I had to keep getting back up. I was committed to an abuse-free life. And if you want to be in an abuse-free life, you have to be committed, because it's a journey. You don't just do it in one day, and it's step by step. We don't just like all of a sudden we're free of abuse. That's what happens. We get out of abusive relationships and we go right back into them. And then that's how we end up in more abusive relationships, because we never healed anything. Hold on, this thing is saying my battery's low. Now I have it plugged in. Shoot, I don't know what the heck's going on. Yeah, so in this journey, it's really about us taking 1 step at a time to heal, because we can't just heal overnight. And so I did finally get out. We ended up divorcing because I couldn't stay with him because, you know, he cheated on me with strippers and prostitutes. That's a whole nother story. But if I can do it, you can do it. I am now living an abuse-free life, loving myself first, saying yes when I mean yes. Setting boundaries are natural for me, and I feel sane every day. I feel excited when I wake up in the morning instead of depressed and dreading my day like I used to. And I'm enjoying my life with beautiful, loving connections. And I'm following my passion, which includes coaching women to step into sanity and away from the crazy. And I think it's really important to note that it's not unusual for intelligent and successful women to be in an abusive relationship with a spouse and or a business partner, and to not recognize they're being abused, since not all abuse leaves marks, right? Many women are successful everywhere but in their relationship, and that bleeds over to impacting their ability to show up in their relationship and in their business in a powerful way. Toxic love not only affects you as a woman, but it translates into your everyday life and ultimately destroys your self-confidence, your sanity, to where you don't recognize yourself anymore. And I was at that point. I was a shell of myself. And many women have suffered for countless generations in toxic relationships without a voice or the power to change their situation. And talking about abuse is difficult because so many women carry shame and blame around it. And it's heartbreaking. And I felt the same thing, like I mentioned earlier. But we now have the opportunity to change this in our lifetime. So here's what we learned. Not all abuse leaves marks, and that can make us feel confused and crazy. We are part of the cycle because of our childhood conditioning, but we have the power to change that. That from 0 to 6, our subconscious was developed, and we developed beliefs, patterns, programs, and conditioning to protect us and keep us safe. Our subconscious runs 95% of our life, and to get the life we want, we have to change the beliefs and programming and patterns that are in our subconscious. That boundaries are an act of love, and we can reclaim our power and sanity by keeping them, and by giving ourselves love and acceptance that we needed as kids. We can nurture ourselves from the inside out to show up confidently and boldly everywhere in our life. We created coping mechanisms to avoid feeling our helplessness, our heartbreak, our loneliness, and grief of not being able to connect with others. That was a lot. And we can only be in one of 2 intentions at any time, a closed or open. And we get to choose which one we're in and who we're going to be around. And that's where our power comes from. Our power comes from choice. And so we learned we can break free of toxic patterns and abuse to have the success in our relationship and business that we want with the right support. Coaching changed my life for good. Coaching can help you get the life that you want. It is a blessing to be able to turn my messy life into a message of hope and light for so many women. And I have the honor of helping women break free all over the world using over 6 modalities of healing that I'm trained and certified in. And I help my clients through one-on-one and group coaching to create a subconscious that serves them to have the relationship, business, and life that they dream of. Because I know I didn't dream of being in a relationship where I was abused and not heard or seen, right? Yeah. And so I do have a free gift for everyone here. It's a free session, Step Into Your Sanity. Feel free to sign up for it. I would love to help you in that session. We will talk about what's going on, what you can do, and what it would be like to work with me. And for those of you who would like to go deeper with me, I'd like to share the details of my Rise and Thrive group coaching program. And I created this program because I wanted to help women recognize the abuse earlier in their relationship so they do not suffer for years like I did, like many women have, and keep them from going from one abusive relationship to the other. And I struggled for many years feeling like I was powerless, weak, and crazy in my relationship, even though I was powerful in my business. And so if you've ever struggled like that or had similar feelings in your relationship, then you know what it's like to live with the shame, the blame, and the helplessness. And I would love to be able to help you stop worrying when is the next time he'll explode, stop walking on eggshells, and to stop getting smaller and smaller, because that's what I did. Like I kept myself very small so that I could stay in the relationship. And so I'm sharing this screen real quick. So I have a Rise and Thrive group coaching that I'd like to invite you to. Nora was a PhD, successful professor, and published, but she tried to commit suicide. She was afraid to divorce her abusive husband. She'd left 4 years ago, and she was in an abusive relationship. And what she had to say after she worked with me one-on-one is, I felt broken from my highly toxic relationship, betrayed at the deepest level, and my life was in chaos. With Tracy's support, I had a huge shift, and I'm now able to love, trust, and prioritize myself and my feelings. I know my worth and now focus on meeting my needs in all the ways I didn't before. I am so grateful for the opportunity to work with Tracy and can now pass on to my daughters all that she has taught me, making her strategies timeless and endless. And what I love about this is that changing generational bonds, right? Changing that generational trauma. That's what I'm here for, helping women change so we can change the world. Shelley was a PhD and a successful professor, but she was very stuck in a people pleaser coping mechanism, and she had toxic relationships. And after working with me one-on-one, she said, what I truly and deeply value about Tracy is her wisdom, intuition, and precision in thinking. She understood my problems when my words failed to explain them. I built up confidence in areas that I was afraid of sharing earlier. And by helping me develop great awareness, I was automatically able to dismantle false beliefs that were running my life. I loved working with Tracy and I highly recommend her. She is compassionate and kind and made my journey transformational. And what I love about that is that I held the space for her to make the transformation. I didn't cause it. I just helped her to become empowered in herself. And that's what I love doing. I love watching the transformation. And then Lori is a successful model, but she wanted to stay with her abusive husband. She knew he was abusive, but she still wanted to stay. And so I agreed to try to help her do that. And after working with me one-on-one, she said, I was very distressed and not in control of my emotions. I was completely overwhelmed with trying to keep my partner from being angry. I felt helpless, often terrified, anxious, and powerless. And I didn't want to leave my partner, even though I knew he was abusive, because he always did things that made me want to stay. Self-doubt was my companion. Tracy has helped me realize I'm not crazy or weak or oversensitive. She really understands building your power and strength. Tracy helped me understand myself and rebuild self-confidence in myself again. So if you are in a relationship with someone who is hurting you, stop wishing things will change and reach out to Tracy for help. It will be the best decision you ever made. And so if you see yourself in any of those women or anything that I said, I would love to help you, whether it's one-on-one coaching or group coaching. Real quick with group coaching, how you'll feel when you get done group coaching with me is you will feel sane and confident and able to make powerful decisions, because I spent a lot of time doubting myself, second guessing myself, feeling like I was crazy, and a lot of women do. You'll create even more business than you had before. Oops, something went wrong there with my thing. You'll stop getting triggered. You'll release trauma for good. You'll say yes when you mean yes. You'll confidently know your next steps. You'll enjoy life. Feel free to be yourself, because I really lost myself. And I didn't have the connection, the fun, or the intimacy that I wanted. And so my program is all about helping you to get that, and to set and keep healthy boundaries to build your self-confidence and shift your focus from fear, obligation, and guilt of focusing on that person to focusing on you, to trust yourself and your intuition. And so I just want to thank you for being here. Those are the details of my program. I don't think I have time to go over them because I don't know where I am time-wise. I forgot to set my timer. Sorry about that. But it is a 3-month group coaching program. We meet on Zoom. We meet live. We have a master class. Then we have some love seat coaching, which is one-on-one coaching with me during the group. We have a private Facebook group. And if you sign up at the end of, not today, but the end of the summit, you'll get a bonus session of coaching with me one-on-one. And so just use the link in the chat. And if you have a VIP ticket, you can use the code in the goodie bag and receive 20% off my one-on-one or group coaching programs. So thank you for having me. Thank you for being here and investing in yourself. And if I have connected with you, if you resonate with me and you feel like you need some help, please reach out to me and we can always talk about it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Yes, we were clapping for you, Tracy. That was brilliant, brilliant.
It was a lot. After I looked at the things I said I was going to work, share, I'm like, oh my gosh, how am I going to get this done in 40 minutes? So I apologize if I talked really fast. I was trying to really get all that stuff, make sure I delivered on what I said I was going to deliver. And so, yes, and it's very important for me because there's so much around this topic that I could talk for 8 hours easily. You know what I'm saying? So I really hope everybody got some value out of it.
Yeah, I can resonate with comments in the chat. Yes, you did it incredible. And even though maybe at some points there was some, running fast, but the value of this information, the realization, and perhaps for some people, those signs, we could have spotted them earlier if we had that awareness early on
Yes.
and knew how to deal with it, how to overcome it. And this is the power of us sharing our stories in space like this. Because I mean, it's never easy, and it's never easy to blame someone. To be honest, the confusion is so real. The
Yeah.
confusion is just like, even when you walk out of it, there is still
Yeah.
confusion. Was it real? Was
Yes.
it real? Was it a phase? Was it love? Was there no love? It's completely just mind-boggling after you come out of something like that. And I'm grateful for you to share this experience so other people can actually recognize some of the signs, hopefully a little bit sooner than you had, or other people don't need to struggle for that long.
Yeah, and that's kind of why I kind of wanted to go into my story and the description of the things that happened and how it felt, so that if they're experiencing something similar, they can recognize, like, wow, that is a stupid reason to be mad at me, right? To be yelling at me or beating me, or, just wanted to make sure that I had some good examples of this is what it feels like. And that's the whole thing. If you feel bad in your relationship, that's the sign that something's wrong. Because in a narcissistic, toxic, abusive relationship, like, everybody experiences something different, and because it is confusing, and each abuser does something different. And so you leave that relationship feeling crazy. And so you can't, yeah, you can look at red flags and you can try to figure this out and that out. And those are important things. But at the end of the day, it's how you're feeling in your relationship. And if you don't feel seen and heard and cared about and that you matter, then that is not a match for you.
Yeah.
Right? Being in that intention of closed or open. Am I feeling loved in the way that feels good to me? Or am I being judged and criticized and made to feel that with my second husband, I felt like my basic existence was attacked.
It's like, do you feel safe? Do you feel safe in your home?
Yeah, I never felt safe because I was always on edge, wondering, and I'd have, towards the end, I just completely basically stopped talking to him, because it was like everything I said made him mad, no matter what subject it was. And so I would just try to not even talk to him so that I wouldn't get yelled at. But then, I got in trouble for not talking to him. So you never win. That's the whole thing with an abusive person. They're always twisting the rules around what they're mad at you about today. They're not mad at you tomorrow about. Like, it's a crazy circular gaslighting, telling you something, then lying and saying they didn't say it, or saying it and telling you you're crazy, oversensitive, like all that stuff. Just
Tracy,
there's so much to it.
make sure we get to some questions, because I'm just very conscious of time. Bianca wanted
that's fine.
to ask a question. Bianca, did you want to come on screen or just ask something in the chat? I will bring you on.
Hi, Bianca.
Hi. Oh my gosh, your whole question really hit home. I haven't personally, but my parents were, and I grew up with that. And I think it has really tainted the way I show up in relationships, because I'm actually extremely terrified to be in a commitment, in terms of like a marriage, because of what I saw growing up. So I just would love to hear how you overcame that fear of putting yourself out there. And I'm not sure if you're dating anyone right now, or how you were able to really look for those, I guess you could say, like, those feelers of like someone who is healthy, and like how you were able to put yourself in that situation again and feel that emotional safety. Because now I do notice myself, if I go on dates, I I get I get like panic and things like that. Like if I'm like dating someone consistently and it's like possibly going to become something serious, it's not like, yay, exciting. I'm more like, oh, this is getting serious. Like, is this what I want? And so, yeah, I'd just love to hear how you've overcome that, and how you were able to step into something more emotionally fulfilling and stable for yourself.
Yeah, so what I do now is I ask myself how I'm feeling. When I'm around someone, I'm noticing, how am I feeling? Do I feel safe? What is my intuition saying? What is my gut instinct about this person? What is my gut instinct about what this person is saying? Right. And so I'm not really trying to go down a list of, oh, he does this or he does that, but there are things that glare in your face, right? When they're disrespectful to waiters when you go to a restaurant, or, they had a bad relationship with their mom, there's always indicators. But trusting myself is what I had to come back to, because that was all undermined for me. I didn't learn to trust myself in my childhood. I didn't know that how I felt was okay. And so I had to come back to safety within me. And so then now when I'm with other people, if I stay focused on me. So I don't try to figure out, oh, how do they feel, so that I know how I feel. I feel how I feel. And if something feels off, now I trust it, because before I didn't trust it. When I was with my second husband, we moved in together and I started feeling suffocated, but I thought it's because I didn't live with someone for 7 years, but it was because he was suffocating me, right? But if I had had those tools that I have now, I would have been like, oh, wait, something's off. Like, we don't always know exactly what's off, but trusting ourselves that something feels off, that's the key. If something feels off, it is off. Get in with yourself, figure out, what are you feeling? And not from blaming of he does this, he does that, more from, how do I feel? Do I feel helpless? Do I feel attacked? Do I feel blamed? How do I feel? And staying connected to yourself. That's our key. That's our key to not getting in toxic relationships, is staying in touch with us. Does that make sense?
Yes. Wow. I've actually never heard that framed that way. That's really honestly exceptional. I've never heard it put that way. And I've worked with relationship coaches and things like that. And so, wow, that's really amazing. I didn't think of that, because I think, the people pleasing in me is like, oh, how do they feel about the date? Do they like me? Do they
Yes.
want to be with me? Instead of
Yes.
reverting it back to, do I want to be with them? Like, do I see myself in a happy relationship with them? And
Yes.
so really reverting it back and having that introspection that it's like, I'm equally important in this relationship. Like,
Yeah.
what I feel equally matters in this relationship. And I've never really looked at it like that. And I remember being on dates and I would be like, oh, I hope they had a good time. And I would even text them like, did you have a good time? And isn't that crazy? And I don't even I would put what they thought about the date and the relationship above my own needs and my own wants.
Yes.
And what I felt was important. So I appreciate you writing it like that and speaking it in that way. And I think I'm going to really sit down with myself and journal more about that and why I feel that I'm focused more on them instead of myself. So thank you for that. I appreciate it. So good. Thanks so much. I follow you on
Awesome.
Instagram,
Thank you.
so thank you.
Thank you for the question. That was a great question. So yeah, we tend to look outside of ourselves for love and acceptance, and that's how we get stuck in abusive relationships. So when we look only to ourselves first, and then we can look out, because we can give love unconditionally, because now we love ourselves enough. So it's all about that. Yeah. Thank you.
Thanks, Tracy. We appreciate you. This was a beautiful, beautiful presentation. Thanks, Bianca, for your wonderful questions today. When we ask questions, we can really uncover so much more. And I encourage and appreciate you, all of you, to participate like this, to ask questions, whether in the chat, whether on camera. That makes all the difference, because we get to have these conversations.
Yeah.
And yes, I know the time is running and things like that, but this is the safe space for us to do that. And we just never know what could come up. If there is a question in your mind, the truth is, it's probably the question for somebody else in their mind as well. So I appreciate that. And I just wanted to say something about, when we heal, we start to attract healthy relationships.
Yes.
So yes, I'm all in for tuning into how we feel. But from my experience as well, when I wasn't healed, I wasn't attracting healthy and beautiful and supportive relationships, but because my own perspective of what is a healthy relationship was skewed.
Yes.
And only once I started to build my own boundaries, love myself more, and say to myself, this is not what I'm going to accept, and this is a non-negotiable for me, I started to attract the right things into my life, whether with relationships that are romantic or not. And I think it goes around in every way in our lives. Tracy, appreciate you. Hope you stick around for the next few sessions. And it's a pleasure to have you on the stage. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Have a great day. And yeah, I'll be here for a little bit.